Hey everybody, welcome to this Founder Institute event. My name is Jonathan Greachin. I am a co-founder of the Founder Institute, and I will be your MC for this event today. And speaking of co-founders, that's why we're all here today, right? This event is a networking for a remote co-founder event, and I'm excited to announce that we had hundreds upon hundreds of people register for this event all around the world. I mean, seriously, from some of the farthest corners of the planet. So if you are joining us today, let us know where you're joining from in the chat. We do have people from the Founder Institute team that are in there right now. So let us know where you're joining from. I mean, honestly, the whole point of this event is for you to make connections, all right? This is not just supposed to be some kind of stodgy webinar where you just watch a bunch of people talk. The point of this event is for you to make connections with other people. So please do engage in the chat and do not be shy. All right, so with that being said, let me talk a little bit today about the agenda and how this event is going to work. First, I'm going to give a little presentation. It should take about 20 minutes or so about some of the best practices that I've learned around startups and co-founders and team building in the 15 plus years that I've been working in startups, and also with the thousands of FI companies that have come through the Founder Institute program. And then secondly, you know, this presentation is going to cover things like co-founder dynamics, how to formalize a co-founder relationship, how to find a co-founder, and things like that. And then after that, we're going to get to the fun part, all right? The fun part is going to be the co-founder networking. Now, if you arrived a little bit early for the event today, you probably saw the networking lounge that we have here in Airmeet. It's pretty damn cool, if I say so myself, and it kind of mimics the experience that you would get in a normal networking hall at a conference, where there's a number of different tables that have different topics. You can jump around to those tables and meet people in kind of a group video chat setting. And then also there's a lot of one-to-one kind of chat roulette style networking as well. So we're gonna get back into that shortly after I go through this presentation to give you some of the best practices. All right, so I'm gonna start off with my story and how I found my co-founder at the Founder Institute, because everybody kind of has their own story. And to be honest with you, it's not the most interesting story. My co-founder is Adair Resi, he's the CEO of the Founder Institute, and I met him on Craigslist. Now, no, it wasn't in the dating or the singles section, but this was back in 2004 in New York City, and I just graduated college, and I wanted to get into technology startups. And at the time, I'm not really anymore, but at the time I was a pretty big gamer. And I just started looking on Craigslist for opportunities in the gaming field. And I was lucky enough to find this small online gaming startup. I ended up joining. I ended up being kind of their first marketer at that startup, and that company grew, raised a bunch of money, and then we ended up selling that business to Real Networks a couple of years later. So to be honest with you, I got lucky there. I think at the end of the day, you know, the only lesson from my personal experience was that if you're passionate about something and you want to meet other people in the space, then just go seek those people out. Go see what they're working on. I started there as a $10 an hour intern, all right? And then I think within a year or two, I was running all of marketing because it was a small company and people just needed to take things and run with it. So I think really the lesson there is that you have to seek the things that you're passionate about, and then you'll find other people that are passionate about similar things. Now, what I do think is interesting about my co-founder dynamic is just, you know, how we're pretty different people. For anybody who knows myself and who knows Adeo, you know, we're sort of polar opposites. I mean, on his side, he's an extrovert, I'm an introvert, okay? I've trained myself to talk on events like this, and it's certainly easier not being on a stage and being in front of a webcam, right? But I am an introvert for sure. Also, you know, I think on the risk-taking scale, my co-founder is definitely more of a risk taker, is always like go, 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 like build, 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 sprint, 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 where I'm a little bit more, I wouldn't say that I'm not a risk taker, but I'm certainly less of a risk taker than he is. I'm a little bit more measured in some of my evaluations and things like that. And then also just from a skills perspective, he is definitely more on the sales, the tech, and the finance side, whereas I am, more on the creative side, sort of the marketing side, some of the operations and the product and UX and things like that, right? But where we differ in sort of skill sets, we share a lot on other parts of our personalities, right? We have shared interests. It was actually back in the day in this gaming company, we used to play Call of Duty. I think it might have, this was back in 2005 or so, so it was probably like Call of Duty 2 or 3 or something like that. We would play that all the time. So we did a lot of nerdy, bonding over video games back then. So we had some shared interests. We both loved the outdoors and things like that. I think what's really important is that we think the same way, all right? We're both very structured thinkers. And in the Founder Institute, our product definitely reflects that. It is a very structured approach to build a business. It breaks it down into very, kind of finite, actionable pieces. So the fact that we're both very structured thinkers, and that when any problem is presented to us, we tend to break it down into small bite-sized chunks, that makes us pretty compatible as co-founders. And then finally, we have a very similar work ethic. Now, we're both kind of workaholics. Now, I'm certainly not something to brag about. It's just, it is what it is. But we both, work a lot, and we sort of expect that from each other. So those are the kinds of things that have made us a good co-founding team. So that's my co-founder dynamic. Now there's a classic team composition that's out there in the world of startups. And some people agree with it, some people don't. It's very skills specific, but it's this concept of a hacker, a hustler, and a hipster, right? The hackers are going to be the ones that actually build the product. They're going to be the technical people. The hustlers are going to be the ones that sell the product, create the partnerships, hire people, raise funding. And then the hipsters are going to be the ones that actually design the product, the UX, and a lot of the marketing, the branding, and figure out how to communicate that product to the world and sell it to customers, right? That is sort of the traditional way to look at these things. It's a little bit dated, in my opinion, because it is just focused 100% on skills, and as I'll talk about a lot today, the skills is really just one part of the pie here. The other side of this pie, or the other side of the coin, is the personality side, right? And these are the shared traits of team members. Now, at the Founder Institute, because we work with people at such an early stage, we're less in our admissions process looking at the business that you're building and the idea that you're building, and we're more interested in actually who you are as a person, right? So we've been doing social science testing since day one at the Founder Institute, which was 2009. And we have collected data now on over 40,000 people, I believe, at the latest count since 2009. And, basically the idea of all this testing is that we're trying to quantify who people are and what, kind of their personality traits are as they start to build business. And this has allowed us to find personality traits that correlate positively with building a fast-growing technology company, right? Because we can then take all the companies that come through our program and kind of correlate back those traits. And what we've also found is that there's a number of traits that sort of need to mesh together with the different team members in order for that team to be kind of a well-functioning, well-oiled machine. So one of the first traits that we look for, or one of the largest traits that we look for in our testing, is something called fluid intelligence. Now, fluid intelligence, it's not IQ, all right? IQ is sort of like raw computing power, and I think you could probably agree that just because someone has a really high IQ does not mean they're going to be a great entrepreneur, right? Fluid intelligence instead is your ability to learn something very, very quickly and then apply that new learning to new problems, right? Essentially, in layman's terms, it's your ability to learn really quickly, to think on your feet, etc. So it's really important for people on the co-founding team to be high in fluid intelligence, because you're going to be learning new stuff every single day, at a startup, things that maybe you don't care about. You might hate legal, you might hate finance, but you're going to have to learn that stuff quickly, and you need to expect that out of your other team members as well. The second one is agreeableness. Now, agreeableness is not necessarily the more the better. This is sort of on a scale. If you are 0 on the agreeableness scale, then you're like a total pushover. You never stand your ground. If you're a 100 on the agreeableness scale, you basically, oh, sorry, I got that mixed up. If you're 100 on the agreeableness scale, you're a total pushover, and people will just walk over you. If you're a 0, pardon my French, but you're sort of an insufferable asshole. Okay, like you look at most conversations as sort of win-loss scenarios, and you always want to win. So, you know, really, as a co-founding team, you want to have people that are sort of on the middle of that spectrum. Okay, if one person is just bossing around the other person all the time, that's not going to be a long-lasting relationship. You want people that are able to stand their ground when necessary, but also be flexible and relent when also necessary. Right? Dependability is important. I think that's fairly obvious. And then the last one here, which a lot of people don't talk about, is emotional empathy. All right, so this is something that every company, every business, every startup is going to go through some dark times. All right, and if you're on a co-founding team and you can't appreciate that, you can't have emotional empathy, maybe one person's going through their own dark times, right? Maybe it's a personal thing, family issues, whatever. If you're not able to kind of balance that personal empathy, that personal side of it with all of the stresses and stuff that are coming in the actual startup, then you're probably going to fail, right? And to be honest, myself and my co-founder, you know, we've definitely been through some dark times. This business started in 2009, and we've done other businesses together, and we fight. You know, I don't know, maybe fairly often. I'm not sure. Some of those fights have gotten, you know, pretty dug pretty deep as well. But at the end of the day, you know, we have this emotional empathy for each other. So if he's going through something, if I'm going through something, we all know, okay, it's time for me to step up. It's time for him to step up. And we're able to sort of, you know, just appreciate what the other person is doing in that respect. So emotional empathy is incredibly important. Because in a business, as soon as you start pointing fingers to the other person, that then becomes a very, very slippery slope, right? So having that emotional empathy, incredibly important, because it's going to be a rocky ride. So after so if you want to learn more about what some of your traits are, we do have this entrepreneur DNA assessment. Once again, this is the main admissions test that we use for the Founder Institute. You can get a free analysis of your traits at fi.co/join/DNA. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes. It's a completely online test. And when you finish it, you'll immediately get an entrepreneur DNA report telling you about some of the traits that you have. All right, so what I've talked about so far is kind of the actual hard skills that you may have in your business, some of the personality traits that you may have that people need to mesh with. Now I'm going to talk about kind of what some of the experiences that you need to have. All right, and this is, honestly, I personally think this is kind of common sense, right? If I look at a business and this business, basically they're building a SaaS product or a subscription product that they're going to sell to very large organizations. If they don't have somebody on their team that has experience selling subscription products to very large organizations, they're probably going to fail, okay? And, you know, that is, especially if you're thinking about raising venture capital or investment, if they, you know, those are kind of red flags that they're going to be looking for. So it's not just the skill sets that you have, it's the experience that you have. And I think the experience is even more important. All right. You have to be able to kind of take a step back from your business, look at it as sort of a puzzle and say, okay, well, here's clearly a missing piece in our puzzle. We need to fill that. We need to fill that piece. And then this is a term that I also love in startups, FSO people. So again, pardon my French, but FSO people stands for figure shit out people. All right. When you're first starting your business, you don't need like the best email marketer in the world. You don't need the best social media person in the world. You need people that can figure shit out. All right, because every single one of you, every single day is going to have to be figuring shit out. There's going to be a million different things that you're going to have to do. There's going to be legal, there's going to be sales, there's going to be finance. There's going to be a lot of different things that none of you are really trained to do or particularly like to do, but people are going to have to do that stuff. Right, and this sort of gets back to what I was talking about before on the fluid intelligence is one of the traits that we look for, because as an entrepreneur, you are constantly learning new things. You have to learn those new things because, especially in the beginning, you don't have the luxury of hiring somebody that is a specialist in those things, right? So in the beginning, you have to have a team of FSO people. And if some people on the team are people that can figure shit out and other people aren't, that's going to create some very, very strong friction points very, very quickly. Okay, you have to have people that are willing to kind of roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty on a number of different topics, even if it's something that they have no interest in, because that is just the nature of a startup. All right, you're not going to have specialists to accomplish a lot of these different tasks. You have to find FSO people, people that can figure shit out. And so let me now move on to kind of the part two of this talk, and we'll get started on the networking in just a few minutes here. But this is on formalizing a co-founder relationship. So luckily, I haven't been through this, but I've seen so many situations where really strong friendships, childhood friendships, people that went to kindergarten together, college, etc., just completely deteriorate through building a startup together. You know, to the point where they're only communicating with each other through lawyers, right? And that's a really tough thing to see, and it's really unfortunate. But I can definitely tell you that there is just a massive assumption out there that, okay, if this person's my friend, then they're going to be a great business partner, and that is just not true. Not true at all. It's not nearly as simple. Yes. The person being your friend, you know, it checks off some boxes, right? Okay, like you can stand being around this person. You like to talk to this person. You share some interests, right? Yeah, sure, it checks off some of the boxes, but a lot of the boxes, or the majority of the boxes, it does not check off. And that is why, no matter how well you know somebody, okay, honestly, even if it's your spouse that is your co-founder, and I've seen that go bad and also work well at the same time. But even if it's your spouse, you need to test drive that co-founder relationship, okay? You have to sort of stress test it based on the types of activities that you will be doing as startup co-founders. And the most effective way to do this, and this is something that we recommend to a lot of people in the Founder Institute that are coming in and are solo founders and kind of, you know, have prospective co-founders and early team members, is that we tell them to do a project together. Okay, jumping into a co-founder relationship too quickly is, you know, there's a lot of implied things there. It's too much too soon, right? It's sort of like an arranged marriage. Whereas if it's a project, you know, there's a lot less assumed, a lot you know, less weight to it. And the most effective project that we recommend is to just run an event together. Okay, now, obviously, this has become a lot easier now in the time of COVID, because you can just fire up a Zoom, run an event. But basically, an event is a great way to test a relationship for a couple different reasons. Number one, it requires a ton of different skills and projects across, you know, a lot of different components that probably neither of you have, right? You're not traditionally trained to do these things. You need to be organized. You got to find speakers. You got to market the event to attendees, whether it's emails, you know, listing sites, meetups, social media promotions, etc. You want to find promotional partners to probably help promote that event. And then you actually have to run the event itself and be super organized and have somebody speaking and be the MC. And then you have to communicate to the attendees. The list goes on and on and on, right? And the idea here is that within an event, you know, it's a great opportunity for you to sit down and be like, all right, here are a number of different things that neither of us really like to do or necessarily know how to do. Here's how we're going to split it up, and let's go do it. Let's go figure shit out. right? And when the event is over, you can sort of have this postmortem and try to say, okay, here are the things that went right, here are the things that went wrong, and you can sort of start to stress test this relationship in times of stress, but also in times of uncertainty, right? When it's like, okay, well, somebody's got to, sell this event to this person, right? Who's going to do it, right? And we're going to kind of look at each other, and it's going to be a little awkward, but those are the conversations that you need to have. And by the way, the other great thing about running an event as a test of your relationship is that it's not just a test. You're doing beneficial things for the future business, right? You're building a list of potential customers. You're getting in contact with speakers who are probably leaders in your space, right? Let's say you're building a fintech company, right? If you run a fintech event, you're going to be contacting fintech leaders. You're going to be, trying to work with and contact, maybe fintech blogs and social media channels and influencers, right? So you're actually going to be getting out there, meeting people in the space, building an initial customer list. So even though it's super valuable as a test, it also, you're kind of parallel processing and starting to create some relationships that are going to be super valuable for your business as well. So please, this is not optional, believe me. You have to test drive your relationship. I don't care if it's your best friend from high school. I don't care if it's your father. I don't care if it's your wife or husband or mother or whomever. You have to stress test that relationship. You can't assume that one relationship is going to transfer to another, especially a startup relationship where you're talking about money and high levels of stress. So the other way to stress test these relationships and to ensure compatibility is to just talk it out, all right? There's a link here, bit.ly/34 questions. And on that link, you'll find 34 questions that entrepreneurs should discuss with potential co-founders. Okay. And a lot of these questions, again, like this isn't skill sets or things like that. These really get into the personal motivations and the life state that you're in when you're starting to build this company, right? Because it's not enough that you are compatible with the skill sets. You both want to solve this problem. You need, one person's life maybe is on a different timeline. Maybe they already have kids and they need to be thinking about paying for their kids' college and stuff like that. Whereas you're still single and you're willing to throw all of your life savings into this business, right? You have to make sure that these things are compatible and that you have these discussions up front. And it's amazing how many times I hear from a co-founder, usually the business is starting to go down the drain a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, well, my other co-founder dropped out because, they just don't have any money left." And and I'm always just so surprised. I'm like, "Well, how did you not know that? Did you guys not talk ahead of time about, okay, how long are you comfortable, working without any salary?" And then similarly, there's so many times when co-founder relationships break down because they just have philosophical differences on where they want to bring the business, right? If one founder wants to raise funding and build $1 billion business, that's going to take a very different path from another founder who honestly just wants to employ a couple people and just live a fairly comfortable lifestyle. Right? These are two very divergent paths. So you have to have these conversations ahead of time. And I recommend you go to bit.ly/34-questions and you'll see some great questions there to kind of get you started on that path. All right. And then here's the topic that nobody likes to talk about, the equity split. And the funny thing about the equity split with co-founders is that the reason why nobody likes to talk about it is why it's so damn important. It's a test, okay? How you figure out the equity split with your co-founders is a test. It's a test on how realistic you're going to be with your co-founders. It's a test on how able and how candid the co-founders can be with each other to have the hard conversations. And as a test, this is a unique test in that there's only one wrong answer, and that one wrong answer is 50-50, right? Is splitting it evenly. So 50-50 with two co-founders, if it's 3, 33, 33, 33, or a quarter for 4 co-founders, and so on, right? The thing we're not all equal, okay? I'm sorry. And everybody brings different things to the table. All right. My co-founder owns much more of the business than I do. Right. Why? Well, he fronted a lot of the money in the beginning to get the things going. He had some of the key relationships to get the thing going as well. So, clearly, yes, he should own more of the business than I do. And those conversations were had. And those conversations can be a little bit difficult, but if you can't have a difficult conversation before you get started on the business, then you might as well not start the business. All right? Have those difficult conversations now, when you don't have, some investor breathing down your neck, or you don't have, payroll that you need to hit next month, that you're not sure if you're going to be able to hit, right? Do those things now. Because if you don't, you're honestly just kicking the can down the road on some of these difficult conversations, and it's just going to lead to failure in the future. And just to bring it back to the investor perspective as well, this is a red flag that a lot of, especially angel investors, will look for if they see the cap table and they see that the founders own equal splits. That typically is a red flag. It's certainly a red flag for me, because it shows me that those co-founders have not had real quote-unquote co-founder conversations yet. And that is a huge red flag, because breaking down of co-founder relationships is one of the biggest reasons why startups fail. All right, so lastly, and this is right before we get into the networking portion of this event, is how to find co-founders. So I'm actually going to quote myself here, which is certainly a vain thing to do, and I don't think I've done it before. But the lack of a co-founder is a terrible excuse to not get started. All right, and the reason why I believe so much in this quote and in this advice is because in the pre-COVID days we ran a ton of meetups, a ton of in-person events, and I can't tell you the number of people that I've met at these events who are there. And it's usually the same face, right? I start to recognize them after a while. They're there, and it's like, hey, I have this $1 billion idea. I can't get started until I have somebody that can build it, or I can't get started until I have somebody that can sell it, or I can't get started until I find this kind of co-founder, et cetera, right? It's an awful, awful excuse to not get started, right? And the reason for that is that it's sort of a chicken and egg thing. Like, if you're just sitting with your idea in your basement with the blinds closed because you don't want to share it with somebody and you don't want to get started, and you're kind of, maybe even, subconsciously too scared to get started, you're not going to meet anybody that could potentially be a co-founder, right? Any quality person that could join your team is not going to be somebody at like a meetup or something that's like desperately saying, oh, I just need this person. You code? Okay, you code. All right, be my co-founder, right? You have to start building out the business yourself, and you'd be surprised at how far you can build out the business with the skills that you have. Now, one of the most common examples that I see of this is with a business co-founder saying, okay, well, I need a technical co-founder. Like, how can I do anything before I build the product, right? It's like chicken and egg situation. Well, in reality, you can do a ton. We have had FI alumni that have come through the program, generated tens of thousands of dollars in revenue, have raised small amounts of angel funding, and that also have built like massive, massive lists of users without writing a single line of code, all right? You just have to be scrappy. You just have to be resourceful. And this is becoming easier and easier these days, especially in the software realm, because of this no-code movement, right? No matter what kind of business you're trying to build, especially on the software side, you can piece together different tools to get first versions of the product out there to prove and validate your product, and to de-risk it, right, so that you can then go out and build the business. And by doing that, by taking your business as far as you possibly can with the skills that you do have, number one, again, you're de-risking the business, right? You're validating it. The business might not even be worth building, right? It's better that you learn that quickly before you spend years and years and, a good portion of your life savings trying to build this business. Right. Number two, by actually building the business, guess what? You're coming into contact with other people in the space, right? This is where you can sort of, quote unquote, make your own luck. This is where those fortuitous connections start to come into place, is when you actually interact with other people in your space, when you actually start to interact with other people that share the same passions as you and that want to solve the same problems that you do, right? And then third, by doing this, you're de-risking the business in the eyes of any potential person that may join your team, right? If you're really trying to get amazing people to join your team and all you have is an idea, all you have is the back of the napkin, scribble, you're not bringing much to the table, right? If you're able to recruit people to your team because you have tens of thousands of people on a waiting list, you prove this, this, and that, and all you need is this to then start getting the business going, now you're in a position of strength, all right? So once again, to quote myself, the lack of a co-founder is a terrible reason to not get started. Actually, by not getting started, you are ensuring that you won't find a co-founder, okay? So it's sort of a self-perpetuating, negative cycle. And then the last thing that I'll say here is that, and it's similar to what I was just describing, you're not gonna find a co-founder if you're just kind of observing. Right? There are a lot of people that are like, okay, I need to know the space. I need to do market research. So they just start reading tons and tons and tons of stuff to stay up to date on everything that's going on. They follow all the influencers on LinkedIn, et cetera. That's useful, sure, but you have to get out there and you have to participate in all the different things that are going on in your space. So there's LinkedIn groups. There's a lot of Slack groups, Slack channels now. Go to Eventbrite, search some of the keywords, attend those events. Again, in the age of COVID, this is so much easier because you can just fire up your webcam and attend these events. Founder Institute obviously is a way to meet other people in your space and to meet mentors in your space, but there's also Facebook groups. Go to a startup weekend. Start organizing a startup weekend in your city if there isn't one already. Co-Founders Lab is another great resource, and Meetup is a resource that I highly recommend as well, because you can really connect with different people based on the strengths that you have. So if you want to find co-founders, again, you have to start building, and you have to participate in all of the different things that are happening in your space. Otherwise, you're not just going to have some potential co-founder, knock on your door. You have to go out there. You have to sort of create your own luck, so to speak. All right. So with that being said, everyone on the line today, is sort of taking maybe one of those first steps, or at least is continuing to participate, not observe, right, in this co-founder networking event. So a couple of things here on how to get the most out of now when we're going to go into this co-founder networking lounge. Number one, in order to get the most out of this AirMeet platform, you have to be either on a desktop or on a tablet, and you have to be using Chrome or Firefox. All right. So I apologize if anybody's joining on a mobile or something. I think on a mobile you can still see me talking here, but you're not going to be able to take advantage of this virtual kind of conference hall that we have, where you can actually meet and converse with other people. And in this conference hall, there's two different ways that you can connect with people. You can join randomly match one-on-one networking. I believe we set it to 4 minutes per person. So you click it, it's sort of a chat roulette style. You get randomly matched. If you don't like the person, you can immediately drop out, or you can do the 4 minutes and then you'll get matched with somebody else. And then the second thing is that you can jump around all these different tables that are based on topic, right? And I have the list of topics here. So there's some general networking tables. There's tables based on, interests and the types of businesses you're building. We also have an I love dogs and an I love cats table. And then all the way at the bottom, there's also these tables called Meet Me Here tables. So in case you want to continue the conversation with somebody, you could tell them to meet you on one of the Meet Me Here tables, or you could also just search their name on the attendees bar on the side of the UI here. And then once you click their name, you can request a one-to-one chat as well. So here's how this works, okay? And this is the recommended way that you approach all of the networking that you're going to do today to try to get the most value for you and other people. Number one, we highly recommend you download this worksheet, all right? For anybody that registered ahead of time, well, I guess if you registered more than 24 hours ago, you would have received a link to this, but if you haven't, download this worksheet right now. It's bit.ly/cofounder-worksheet. All right, and I highly recommend you just have this worksheet sort of side by side with you, as you're going through the networking here on AirMeet. The first thing that we want you to do is to briefly describe your business or your idea, right? And the key word here is brief. All right. That's why we have this one sentence framework here at the Founder Institute, where it's just like, hey, my company or my idea, insert the name of it, is developing a defined offering, right? Don't use buzzwords or jargon. Defined offering is a website, a mobile app, a subscription service, etc. Right? And you're trying to help a defined audience, right? Be a little bit more specific. So don't say I'm trying to help women, right? That's like half the planet's population, not a great target market definition. Try to be a little bit more specific. You're trying to help this defined audience solve a problem, right? If your business isn't solving a problem, then you may or may not have a business. And you're trying to do this with secret sauce. And secret sauce, that's our way of saying maybe it's your unique value proposition, or this is sort of the key insight that you have that you're planning to leverage as you build out your business. After you do that, we recommend you provide just a tad of insight or background. Why are you building this business, and what are you looking for? And then finally, again, you're not the only person on here. Don't be a jerk. All right. And I say that kind of facetiously, but I know that people are going to hog time. So I'm telling everyone now, from myself, please don't be a time hog. Nobody likes a time hog. You want to kind of stick to maybe about 3 minutes or so to cover the top 3 things here. And finally, I'm leaning on you all, for the other people that are going to be in these group chat rooms, to help police this as well. Okay, let's make sure that we all have a chance to kind of share some of our ideas. And I really, really hope that you start to make some connections with some other people that potentially could become team members, or at the very least get some feedback that can help you refine the business idea and keep pushing it forward. All right, well, that's all I have. We're going to move on now to the networking portion of the event. You're all going to be transported back into the AirMeet networking room. And I hope you all have fun. I hope you all are able to meet some interesting people. Once again, and we'll have our team will be pasting in the link to that worksheet. Highly recommend you bring that worksheet up. All right, structure is very helpful in these networking situations. And again, be brief, be concise. Don't be a jerk. All right, don't hog time. Nobody likes a time hog. All right, thanks everyone, and I hope you have fun on the event. Take care.